Lord be with you.
With you.
Let us pray. Assist us mercifully with your help, O Lord God of our salvation, that we may enter this week with joy upon the contemplation of those mighty acts, whereby you have given us life and immortality through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are going to spend a little bit of time considering, as we enter here in Holy Week, some of the locations and places that this week touches upon. Last week, we talked about the way of the cross, the stations of the crosses. They are commonly known. And we looked a little bit at how there is in Jerusalem, the old city of Jerusalem, there is the way of the cross, and that follows where that journey of Jesus from either the military fortress or from Herod's palace, depending on what you think about where that took place, and then through the city, and what that whole pilgrimage has become in Christian life, and how it is part of, it's become a devotion, if you will, in Christian life that many of you have partaken in at one level or another. And then often it is during Holy Week that the Stations of the Cross or the Way of the Cross is a devotion that is partaken in. So today, what I'd like to do is bring up that question of Jesus's, the place of Jesus's death, burial, and crucifixion and resurrection. And we're going to go back once again to Jerusalem. How many people have been once again? A few of you have been? Yeah. So a few of you have seen this spot. Let me just say a few words. I have a lot of my own pictures, but as the world is today, you just Google it and they all the same pictures come up, right? So I'm going to use the ones that but many of those are better than the ones I have as well. So I'm going to use those. And so I got to do this in a way that our online folks can also see. And this keyboard goes out on me occasionally. So let me see. I need to do this. And then I need to do this. And then I can do this. And then I do this. And then I do this. There we go. And I think I've got it. I gotta be. I think everyone online can see it, and I think you all can do as best you can see it as well. And this is the courtyard to the entrance of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Let me just back up for a moment. Let's just back up for a moment and revisit, if you will, the timeline, if you will, of Jesus's life and soon after his life. So, all things being equal, of course, I think all of the dates are probably debatable by a year or two, this way or that way, or a little bit more. But nevertheless, as we understand it, the counting of time changed with Jesus's birth, and so we have BC, right, before Christ, and AD in the year of our Lord, right? Of course, if you're a big scholar, you use CE for the common area, and then BCE for before the common area, right? So that it's not religious in nature, if you will, but nevertheless, it still is, right? No matter how hard you try, it still is, right? So Jesus, our understanding is he lives for 33 years. It's in his 33rd year of life that he is crucified. And from there, we have the continual growth of the church. In the year 328, I think it is, we have we have Constantine, who's the emperor, and he becomes a Christian. Then we have the Council of Nicaea, and we have Christianity now is becoming the religion of the empire, right? So just have that in the back of your mind as we discuss these places in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, of course, so we have Jesus's death in 33, accepting all of these numbers and times, right? And then we have in the year 70, the temple in Jerusalem, the Jewish temple is destroyed, right? And there's huge rebellion or threat of rebellion. It's going to take a little bit more before there's big Jewish revolts over against the Roman Empire in the Palestinian lands, including in Jerusalem. But nevertheless, this event of the temple in Jerusalem being destroyed is also another huge event that happens and that begins to actually shape the land of the old city of Jerusalem. There's really one major understanding of where Jesus's crucifixion, his burial happened, and the resurrection happened. And it really is over the spot that this church is built on, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But I want to give you a sense of, well, first of all, you can see that this, what you could understand it as the holiest site in Christianity, so to say, doesn't really look like a church, right? This is the best shot you can get about the entrance of the church, right? And there's a whole host of reasons for why that is, a whole host of reasons for why that is. But in order to describe those reasons, I want to describe to you, I want to do that through pointing your gaze to this little image right here of this ladder going up to this window. You all see that?
Barely.
Barely. Okay. Well, you'll have to come up later and see here. There's an old wooden ladder sitting up against the wall right there. Every image of this church back to before pictures were even created, or the very first picture that was, that ladder is there. So let's just talk about that for a little bit. And by talking about that, will give us a sense of this site and the place that it plays in our life. So there are, as we know, all types of different Christian denominations throughout the world, right? We have the Roman Catholic tradition, of course. We have Orthodox traditions. So we have Russian Orthodox, we have Armenian Orthodox, and of course, Armenians are the ones who say they're really the oldest and the original Orthodox, because that's where it's the first Christian nation. The Cyrillic language began there, so on and so forth. And then you have Syrian Orthodox, and then you have Coptic Orthodox, who are in where? in Egypt, right? So you have all the Orthodox churches, and then you have the Roman Catholic churches, and they all claim ownership of this site. They all claim ownership of this site. The Protestants came along too late to have any ownership in this site, although the Armenians do allow the Anglicans of the St. George's College in Jerusalem to say their prayers in their chapel occasionally and invite the Anglicans from St. George's College inside for the Easter Vigil as well. A few of them can come that way. So all of these denominations claim ownership of this site, and it is imagine what that's like. Right? Imagine what it's like to have different family members claiming ownership of your grandparents' house. Right? And nobody to mediate. Imagine what that might look like. Right? So it is in the early 1700s that the Ottoman ruler of the Palestinian area at the time develops what he calls a status quo plan and writes it all down about how this site will be organized and managed. And there's a whole set of rules. The Roman Catholics get this time to do their prayers. The Armenians get this time to do their prayers. The Roman Catholics get this chapel. The Armenians get that chapel. The Syrians get that chapel. The Copts get this chapel, right? The Ethiopians as well they're relegated to a little teeny chapel that you have to go through the bowels to find, but nevertheless. So it is in the 1700s that the Ottoman ruler lays all of this out, right? In detail, the status quo, right? Including how they have to ask each other permission to light candles and put them in a certain place. Because if you don't, by lighting the candle, you're saying you own the candle. And by putting the candle in a certain place, you're saying you own the place that you're putting the candle in. And if you are saying that, then you own the ground under which the stand on the candle is. And you're stating your claim to a place that is not supposed to be yours. We laugh, but this is exactly the way it is in this building.
Well, if they had an English common law, I mean,
right.
They wouldn't have that because it's a mistake for property.
That's right. That's right. Not here. Not here. So, so this status quo is still in existence. And that is still what governs this site, including right down to the fact that the Ottoman ruler in the 1700s named a Muslim family that would be in control of opening the door and closing the door at the end of the day. And I had the great pleasure of being there in the morning when he showed up with his big thing of keys to open the door to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And of course, we met him because he was a great friend of this priest. But there's one thing that's not mentioned in the status quo. Guess what it is?
The ladder.
The ladder.
The
What?
The ladder.
The ladder. So nobody touched the ladder. Because if you touch the ladder, you're claiming ownership of the ladder and the ledge that the ladder is on and the window that you get in and out of on the ladder. So there it is. That gives you a little bit of understanding, therefore, then why the building kind of is what it is, right? Once that happened, nobody could really touch anything, right? And this site has been built on in different ways at different times up until the 1700s has been there's been different structures on it. Many of those structures are still incorporated in what is there now, but nevertheless, there's been different structures on it. And the ground is not even, right? So you come in from one area and you're really on the roof and you got to go down and around. If you come in from the other area, you're coming down from below, right? So it's this kind of amalgamation of buildings and structures that has existed over time. Question?
You know, that you're sort of touching on, but my question was obviously, if we're going back to 33 AD, there was no building, no structures, big hills, ground, all that, mountain, this, that. So, and this proclamation came out, status quo in 1700s. Who, I was going to say, who built it originally? What was which of these many groups built it? That's and why? And then I guess the other groups that got to have the shared rooms might be the ones that added on. They all just started building on top of each other. But when did that start? Who started?
Good question. Yeah, I'm going to get there. Any questions? Yeah.
So what's the story of the ladder?
Right.
Okay, you got a ladder.
Nobody knows.
Just there.
Just don't touch it because if you touch it, you're claiming ownership of it. Nobody gets it.
But it's made of wood.
It rots.
Made of wood.
Go away over some time.
One would imagine. I don't know. I don't know. It's a wooden ladder. It's a wooden ladder. Whether or not somebody's replaced it or not, I don't know. Lori?
What's the room that the ladders in?
It's just an I think it's just a hallway that you pass by. There's not a specific room that it leads to. Yeah, there's not a specific room that it leads to. Other questions?
Excuse me. Are we gonna get to the like Easter Eve and how all these?
Yes.
It sounds like a happy scrum.
Yes.
Everybody's hating.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. All right. So questions about just a couple of more foundational questions, right? So we do know from other sources other than the scripture what this area was in Jerusalem at the time of Jesus's life. We do know that it was used as a place of crucifixion. We know that it was used as a burial site. There were tombs in this area, and so we know that this area in Jesus's day was outside the city wall. It's no longer outside the city wall, but at that time it was outside the city wall, and was like there was also a sense of it being like the dump, if you will, of not necessarily exactly how we imagine that, but nevertheless, just a nondescript place where you might do something like crucify somebody and others and criminals, right? And just throw them in a pit, so to say, or in tombs, if you will. So we know that about the site, right? And then after the temple is destroyed in Jerusalem, we have evidence from extra biblical resources that those who followed Jesus were coming to this location as a way of remembrance of his death and resurrection. So that's the point that really needs to be made about the fact that from the very earliest of time after Jesus's death and resurrection, we have some level of evidence that pilgrims were coming to this site, if you will. There was a temple built on top of this site. The emperor built a temple on this site. After the temple was destroyed, Likely because there was a sense that it was becoming a pilgrimage site. So the emperor builds a temple on the site. We don't know if it was a temple to Aphrodite or probably one of the goddesses. There's some disagreement on which goddess it is. And I did find a picture of that, but I'm not sure I can find it that easily, to be honest with you. Right here, this edifice right here is over a rock as well. And you can see some of the foundation of the rock right here. And this rock is also inside the building as well. There is some belief that this right here is where the statue to Aphrodite probably was when that. Yeah, did you have a question? No. So that temple stands for quite a while. And then, as I mentioned, Constantine becomes the emperor, right? And his mother, Helena, really begins these. We need to go back to Jerusalem and become acquainted with where all of Jesus's life and death happened. And she becomes the kind of source that we have much of our source material from her, which, you know, may or may not all be true, but some of it, of course, is, right? And so Constantine then builds the first church destroys the temple, builds the first church. Likely some of these walls somewhere around this property are some of the walls from the temple that existed. Originally, when you walk in this door, let me see if I can, whoops. That's not what I want. When you walk in this door, you see, let me show you from above. This is the blue dome of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre right here. And for many hundreds of years in Jerusalem, if you were to look at a picture of the city, right, this would be the most prominent structure in the city, the dome of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And if you go up to the roof where you look out, you would have seen the empty Temple Mount, right? Christians never tried to develop the Temple Mount because the idea was that this was the new temple, if you would, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It was the Muslims, when they came in, that built the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount and kind of claimed that site. But that kind of anxiety of the Temple Mount, being claimed by Christians never really existed. That was not really ever a Christian thing, but that came much later when the Muslim invaders came into invaders, I call them, came into Jerusalem. So that's the mound.
It was purely a Muslim Jewish complex thing.
The Temple Mount?
Yes.
Well, right now it's purely a Muslim. The Dome of the Rock is, yeah.
But the Wailing Wall's there.
The Wailing Wall is not on the Temple Mount. It's below the Temple Mount.
It's below.
There's another image of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre from up top. So you can just see how different things have been added to it over time. originally, this dome is over what is understood to be the tomb of Jesus. It's likely, not likely, we know that originally there was like a garden. The church was really over here. The tomb was separate, and there was like this garden in between. And then eventually it got enclosed completely, if you will. I wanted to show you what it looks like when you come inside, though. Let's see if I can find that. So.
God, you have a question back here.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, how big a distance is there between the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Dome of Rock?
Well, here's an image of Jerusalem right here. And so I know you can't all see that, but you've got the Church of the Holy Sepulchre over here, and you've got the Dome of the Rock over here, right? So as you can imagine, a number of hundreds of years ago, before this structure was built, it was the blue domes of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that were the major structures that were visible in
So where they were killing people was very much separated from the temple.
Yes, and then because I mean you can imagine, I mean Jerusalem was a tiny little city. I mean, by our standards, right? So the city wall was over here. Now the old city, even though they call it the old city wall, goes all the way up and around. In Jesus's day, it was, yeah, the real old city wall, if you will. Right.
I'm trying to remember, we entered when we went in there, and we went up high. Was the higher place where you started, you came down to the tomb? I thought the whole thing was a zoo. It was terrible. But was it up at the top? Was that where the crosses were?
Yes, up at the top. This is the
people were kneeling and kissing the ground.
Yes, this is the image of the crucifixion. This is the altar that surrounds it.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then underneath here is where you can kneel down and touch the rock.
Yeah.
So the image I'm looking for, I can't find at the moment, but nevertheless. So just recently, well, let me just go ahead and do that then. So this is over the big dome. I mean, this is underneath the big dome, and this is called the edicule. This is a little room that's been built over what is said to be the tomb of Jesus. And so let me back up for one moment. So just that big question that we have, where was Jesus buried, and what does it look like? For most of history, there's been pretty undisputed understanding that it is here in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the site of Jesus's crucifixion and of his burial, and then ultimately of his resurrection. And then interestingly enough, we really do have from the very earliest times of Constantine's church, again, that would be in the 300s, that this area has really been understood to be the place where the tomb was. And there's no, it's highly unlikely that this became the site of pilgrimage and the site understood to be the place of Jesus's burial, without any kind of relationship to the memory of the people about where that was, right? Now, as you and I quite know, maybe it's 100 feet to another direction or 300 feet to another direction or what. but nevertheless, it's truly highly likely that this is the location. And yeah.
Kind of like Matt, to me, in seeing this, both of it, it just felt like it was chaos and very dark. So yeah, I found that spiritually, I was more at home with going to the Garden of the Tomb.
Right, of course, yeah. And I mentioned this last week, but yes, I mean, that's because this is how Orthodox worship. I mean, to them, it's not chaos.
Yeah.
It's how they worship. They worship this way. They don't sit, they stand, they mill around, they pray at an icon, even though the service is going on. It's a different Christian worship experience. We go in and I'm speaking for myself as well, you experience it kind of as chaos going on. Because most of us have been trained that if you want to get in touch with God, you sit and you be quiet. That's when God will speak to you. You sit and you be quiet, and you kneel and you stand when you're told, and you sit when you're told, and it's all okay. But that's our experience of worshiping God. It's not how over half of all Christians really experience worshiping God. It's a very active thing. It's a very smelly thing. The incense are going. There's candles everywhere. There's images everywhere. The images are God with you, not because they are worshiping the image. They have a whole theology of looking through the image to what the image represents. But nevertheless, it's just very different. But yes, this site is controlled by Roman Catholic and Orthodox Christians. And so the whole experience is very different than what we're used to. So Sarah mentions that there's another site in Jerusalem that was discovered really in the 1800s by someone who found this, it is a kind of a mound, if you will, and saw and found a tomb in there and claimed this was Jesus's burial site. And it's been developed to be a site to visit. And most of the Protestants all go there. Because there's grass, it's green, and as Sarah says, it's quiet, and you can.
The rock is there.
The rock is there that was put there. They didn't find the rock there, but there's a rolling rock where you can imagine the stone rolling away, and kind of, so it all kind of fits, right? You know, I'm not trying to mock it. I'm just saying that you can see how this happens, if you will.
Scott,
yeah,
thank you, because having lived in the rural South for a significant period of time,
yeah,
where every, I'm going to say Baptist, the preacher takes a group on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, I'm having trouble with them all gathering around the chaotic. None of them I've ever talked to have come back and said it was a mess. They came back and said it's the most beautiful thing we've ever seen.
mm-hmm.
So it must be the garden.
Yes, right.
Wow.
Right. Yes. So it's the garden tomb that most people went to, and it's a perfectly contemplative site. I mean, it's okay to go there. Yeah, it's contemplative. It's very contemplative. It's it very much is. Yeah. So this is the Edicule. I want to show. I want to show some of these are not. Some of these are the Church of. Some of these are the Church of the Holy Wisdom in Turkey, Istanbul. Let me see. I lost my image stop here. There we go. One more. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, I think this is the better. This right here, this is what I wanted to show you. When you walk in, when you walk in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you see this stone. This is called, when you walk in that door I just showed you, this is called the Stone of Anointing. This is where one of the stations of the cross, where it said that Jesus was laid out and prepared for burial. But you can see, as Matt's saying, you've got all these Orthodox candles up here. You've got so on and so forth. All of those accoutrements are devotion and signify that this site is holy. It's like trying, how do you set aside a physical space to let other people know that there's something special here? And that's what those things mean in the Orthodox world. I have to use this cross to cancel it out. There we go.
In some respects, Scott, because it was so chaotic when I was there with Virginia Theological Seminary, that I actually enjoyed the temple more. I mean, if I didn't understand all the legend, but it was quiet and you could go around the temple and it was beautiful in a way. The old city, I think it was.
Well, the Temple Mount is very quiet as well. Yes. Here's an image of the Way of the Cross in Jerusalem, of people doing the Stations of the Cross on Good Friday. Usually it's Good Friday that is done. Now I want to
should each of the groups have a different group doing the Stations of the Cross?
Yes, there's tons of them, and you have to schedule your time, right? So the Roman Catholics do it one week, then all the Orthodox do it, but all the Orthodox don't agree, right? So they can't all do it together, right? So they have the Greeks do it, then the Armenians do it, and then, yeah, absolutely. I wanted to show you an image. Here it is. This is these are the Roman Catholics praying around the Edicule. I think this is probably later on Easter Day, if you will. And then recently, that building here, the Edicule, has been renovated, and it had to be done by the Israeli government because once again, the groups inside would not agree on what to do with it and how to. It was falling down. It was all shored up with steel, and it needed to be renovated. And the Orthodox would not agree on what to do and how to do it. So the Israeli government just came in and said, we're doing it. Because it's such a major tourist site, right? And they don't want to, they were struggling, the government was struggling with, should we shut this down because it's not safe, right? So they finally just had it all renovated. And that must be before or the renovation, that picture there. I want to try to show you the Easter Eve. So this is the building then. Let me just go back to that image. Let me just use this image for the moment. This Edicule, therefore, then is the site of devotion on Easter. And if you go to Jerusalem on Easter, first of all, you can't get in. You can stand outside, but you really have to be someone who knows someone to be able to get inside. And what you'll see is just crowds and crowds of people around this edicule. And what happens is, before Easter Eve, a chosen priest goes inside and it's sealed up, completely sealed up. And he is checked to be sure he doesn't have any matches or anything on him. And he goes inside, and you'll see this, you can barely see it. There's a little hole right there. And when the sun starts coming up after the whole vigil all night long, inside, all of a sudden, the miracle of the new fire is that he will take a candle that's been lit and stick it outside this hole. And then all of a sudden, everybody around it will grab that new fire and pass it around the whole church, all proclaiming what? Different language, but the same thing. Christ is risen, the Lord is risen indeed, right? And then a specific individual Greek Orthodox person grabs the fire, runs outside, makes it to the airport, gets in a plane, brings it to Athens for the new fire in Greece as well. So it's fascinating. And the miracle is that the light came without, just appeared inside, right? That's said to be the miracle, right? The miracle of the new
Which is
fire.
why the priest is checked.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yes, yes. But on Sunday, next Sunday, you'll see me use matches. I know I'm good, but I'm not that good.
The matches standing front.
No, I don't try to hide the matches.
No, you.
Oh, it's a miracle. No, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. A new fire starts. Yeah. Yeah. There's actually a YouTube on all of this.
So Scott, after the light gets to Athens, do they fly it to Rome?
No, the Romans don't care. The Romans don't care the way you can see here. Now, this is the newly renovated edicule. You can tell, right? And then there's the hole.
Color.
There's the hole right there.
Wow.
This is the newly renovated edicule. They did, when they were renovating this, they did.
Put a gas line in.
No. They took apart the air, because you can go, if you get there in a time where their line is not a mile long, you can go in this as a pilgrim. You have to get on your knees at a certain point to go all the way in, and there's a slab, which is again said to be where Jesus's tomb was. But they've recently, of course, on top, there's been stone that has been put on top of that site. So when they were renovating this, they uncovered it and took the covering stones off. And yes, underneath all that covering stone is the raw rock of the quarry is there. I mean, so it's you know, it is a quarry. I mean, they know it was a quarry. Yeah. So you can see this dome covers this edicule, and you go through here is where the basilica is. So you go through here and you see a regular church, which looks like, you know, a regular church. There are no seats in it, just like in Orthodox churches. There's no seats in the church either. Sometimes, very often, the Roman Catholics do their worship out here. They set up chairs, so on and so forth for their time as well. Now, last week I gave a little bit of an insight to this. When I was there, the person who was leading my tour had been doing this for years. And he took us around in the back. You see this little door here? Well, if you keep going around the back, they have discovered in one of those rooms some of the original tombs of that area. And it is what would be understood to be a rock-hewn tomb. And there's a little stairs you go down, and then there's a ledge, so that when you go down the stairs, the ledge is up here where you would prepare the body for burial. And then there are these niches up above. So it, yeah, I mean, and it's all built into the rock of bedrock. I mean, this isn't, so this site is built over the bedrock, if you will, and that is true. Yeah.
Scott, how far is the supposed place of where was the cross, quote unquote, in relationship to this?
So just over here in the church is where Golgotha is said to be. And yeah, you have to climb up. You have to go up some steps to get there.
I guess there's a mountain going up or something.
This keyboard keeps losing connection with the computer.
Yeah, I think Golgotha, the place of the skull, is because it was a skull, looked like a skull. Plus, we had some scary too, and this is there, right?
So this is. This is all built. You see the rock under here? There's glass that covers it. But if you look through, you can come up, if you come up here, you can see it covers rock. So this is said to be the site of the cross and the crucifixion, Golgotha. You see the bedrock right there. You can see a cut in it, I think not in this location, but just before you get there, you can see a cut in it, which is meant to remind you of at the crucifixion, the stones, the rock was split, it says in the Gospels. So I'm sorry, this keeps coming up because they don't want me to use their stuff for free.
Yeah, I saw that $490.
Yeah. Not paying for that.
Yeah.
But that you can see the bedrock a little bit better right here. Yeah. So you come in that main door, and usually the tours go immediately to the right up the stairs, and you see all of this first, and then you come back down the stairs, and you can go to the Edicule, which is where it is said to be the tomb. Yeah.
It seems strange that Joseph of Arimathea, who was a rich man, would build his tomb next to a garbage dump.
Yeah, it does. It might be that that's where all the tombs were as well, in general. But yeah, we don't know. Or he had many tombs.
Scott,
it wasn't necessarily his own.
Do they charge admission for this?
Oh God, yes.
They split it up.
You can't even get into half of the churches in the United States without paying anymore.
Really?
Yeah, you can't get into the oh gosh, when was it? It was recently. We were in Boston. It's like, oh, let's just go into Trinity Church. Oh God, no, $30. And I said, I'd love to just go in and pray. Like $30. Yeah, well, if you go to the services, right? You're good, right?
You're supposed to leave your 30 in the.
Yeah, no. So yes, they do. Yeah. Other questions? I mean, I think what's interesting about this and prayerful about this is I think it's powerful to get a connection with our own faith and the locations, not because the locations are required for our faith. We are not we don't have a belief that you have to make pilgrimage to this site or any other site in order for your faith to be real. That's not what's going on. But there is something about space and time. And I've got to say that when you go to Jerusalem and you know that you're walking in the same space, if you will, there's something about that that's quite significant and quite powerful, if you will. And for some of the sites that you go to when you visit Jerusalem and the surrounding areas are sites of memory. The place where Mary and Elizabeth met is really kind of a creation, if you will. Maybe it was in that area. So some of the sites are like that. And then some of them we know, for example, we know where the pools of Bethsaida were. They're still there. And there's no questions that these are the pools of Bethsaida, right? So you go there and you sit down. That was the most meaningful spot for me. For some reason, I didn't expect it. I wasn't expecting it at all. I sat down and I read that passage about the man in the pool. And it was just so significant. It was so significant that's the actual place, for sure.
Is it near the church?
No, it's near the temple. Yeah, it's near the temple, more near the temple than it is the church. Yeah.
How far is it to the church?
You know, through the old city, it's a 20 to 30-minute walk.
I'm just trying to think through
Yeah.
trials of Jesus and how you did it.
Right. Yeah, it's a 20 to 30-minute walk. Yeah.
One of the things that I experienced, even though with all the chaos, there's still, as you say, a sense that you're in a holy place. It felt like I just kept thinking, this is the center of the universe. That was a sense. I just kept thinking it and feeling like I was at the middle of everything.
Yeah. So there's something significant about it. And as I say, at the same time, Christians have a little bit different sense of place than our Jewish brothers and sisters do, and even our Muslim brothers and sisters do, because there is this aspect of Jesus's mission and ministry, which was to take us out of the belief that this particular location was salvation, right? So take us out of the belief that God only lived on the Temple Mount. No, that's not true. So we have a different aspect. And it's not that we can't, there are thin places, so to say, right? We all know what it's like to be in a place that seems to be a place where God dwells more for some reason, or at least we're experiencing it more deeply for some reason. But we also, as I say, Christians didn't want to build a church on the Temple Mount for fear that would be saying, well, this really is where God only lives. That's not what we wanted to say, right? So we do have a different take, if you will, I guess is probably a better way to say that, but a different take on holy space, if you will. We understand it, and yet we're not bound by it.
I felt that very strongly. I felt historically, I was fascinated to see the whole city.
Yeah.
But for me, the faith experience was not enhanced necessarily by that. I mean, that was my background.
Yeah.
Historically, I love to see it. It was, I thought the chaos was terrible.
Interesting.
Questions?
Down through eons. And this is going back to Samaria, even Sumer, whatever. Anyway, religious groups have built on top of other religious groups that they've conquered,
Oh, yes.
with the idea that their deity now is overtaking that. And there is some spiritual something going on in that. I'm not sure, but that would be another reason why Christians would build on the temple, because they were not instituting a new God.
Yes, that is another aspect of thinking about it as well. Yeah.
The whole story of the Samaritan woman at the well, where she said, well, our ancestors worked here, but Jesus, but you guys say we're supposed to work at the temple, and then Jesus said, the time is coming when people will work in the spirit and the truth.
Right.
And therefore with that, it's good. That's important. I think that's an important passage for that reason.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And maybe why the garden too can be more interesting to some people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Any questions, comments? All right. Well, today's Palm Sunday. So we will, in a sense, just like the Way of the Cross devotion, our liturgy has a little bit of this physicality to it, as we do a bit of a procession in the church to symbolize, if you will, that moment when Jesus came into Jerusalem. Go in peace, love and serve the Lord.
Thanks.